Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I have another sew along for you and it's super exciting because it's one of my favorite patterns from Simple Life Pattern Company. It is the tied twist back. It's a dress or a top. I've done the top version here. So it has these cute like puff sleeves, very stylish. It has this cool twisted back. And it's like nice and fitted because it has this elastic in the back waist here. It's got the twirly dress. The sleeves and skirt are both hemmed. And I'm using this gorgeous fabric from Northern Fabric, and it is just incredible to work with. It's not too thick, it's not too thin. It's just perfect, honestly. So in order to sew this pattern today, you are going to need fabric with at least 70% stretch. So again, I'm using the fabric from Northern Fabric, and it is a cotton lycra that is 95% cotton and 5% spandex, and it has plenty of stretch for our purpose today. You will also need some thread. So I've chosen a nice coordinating thread here. You'll need some elastic. Actually, this is optional. If you want to do the elastic back version, you will need some elastic for that. You'll need a fabric pen. In my case, I like to use these friction pens. I think you can get them at any craft store. I get mine here in Quebec at Desserres. So you'll need one of those. You'll need either scissors or a rotary cutter and mat for cutting your fabric, and probably some regular scissors for cutting your pattern as well. And of course, the dreaded seam ripper. Also, you will be needing an iron for pressing. I just use like a cheap one from Walmart. I wish I had a better recommendation for you, but I just use the one that I've always had. And then your machines. So I use the Singer Heavy Duty 4423. And it has been a workhorse for me. It is amazing. It's a great beginner machine. The only thing that it doesn't have that I would have loved to have on a beginner machine is the lightning stitch. It doesn't have a lightning stitch, but it does have lots of other options that are similar, and it is a great machine to start if you're looking for a machine. And you can optionally have a serger as well to finish your edges. Though it's not necessary. So I use my white Superlock 2000. It's super old. I don't even think they make them anymore, but it works perfectly for me. I've never had any issues with it. So I got it secondhand, super easy, and it's a great machine as well. The other thing I love to have is those pre-wound embroidery thread bobbins. I like them because they have a little bit of stretch to them. So when you are gathering your sleeves or doing any kind of gathering, to have that in your bobbin thread when you're sliding along the fabric is much nicer. It's silkier, so the fabric slides along it easier, and it has that little bit of stretch so it doesn't break when you're trying to gather big things like skirts. And the other optional thing you could choose to have is a double needle. I love using double needles. It's not working. Okay, there you go. A double needle. It looks like that. It's really nice for hemming. It has a nice stretch, so it's something you can use instead of the zigzag stitch for hemming. Then you will need your pattern. So we are doing the tied twist back top and dress from Simple Life Patterns. I have mine here. I glued my pages together and I already cut out the size that I'm going to be sewing. So I have all of my pieces here ready to go. So for today, all we're gonna do is print out our pattern, piece our pattern together, cut out our appropriate size, and then we're gonna cut our fabric. So I'm just gonna go over with you some tips when you're doing that. If you need help, if you need video help, there are plenty of videos all over YouTube on how to print off a pattern, how to cut fabric, you know, all of those things. So I am just going to simply go over some tips, and I will also place a link in the description of this video that'll take you to a blog post that I've written that has a whole bunch of tips on how to use print-at-home sewing patterns. So the important things to keep in mind when you're printing your pattern are to use Adobe Reader. These patterns, at least the ones from Simple Life, are especially created to work well in Adobe Reader, and Adobe Reader is just the most user-friendly software that you can use to be printing your PDFs. So that it is highly recommended. Use Adobe Reader. It's free to download onto your computer, and it allows you to have access to the layers, which means that you can turn off the sizes that you don't want, so you don't have to waste ink printing all of the sizes. Then the other thing I wanted to mention was to make sure you're printing to scale. So you want to be printing at actual size in your print settings when you go to print your PDF. Make sure it's set to actual size or set to 100% scale. If you have an HP printer, they do glitch a lot when it comes to printing PDF patterns for some reason. So if you have an HP printer, I highly recommend printing as image. There should be a little check mark in the advanced printer settings, I believe, that you can check to make it print as an image. And then when you're assembling your pattern, just make sure that you're overlapping those pages, matching up the markings. On the Simple Life patterns, they have the borders that overlap perfectly, as well as the 1-inch circles. So just make sure that those are overlapped perfectly. I like to do it kind of up against light so you can see through the paper. It's a lot easier. And I use a craft glue to glue them together. But you can use tape or whatever, double-sided or regular-sided, whatever you want to use. And then you're just going to cut your size out with your craft scissors or whatever you like to use for cutting out your pattern. Okay, so here are the different pattern pieces that you will need to complete the tied twist back pattern. The first one you're going to need is the front bodice. So the front bodice looks like this. You will cut it on the fold, and you'll cut 2 of them, one in your main fabric and one in your lining fabric. Next, you need the back bodice, which looks like this funky shape, and you will need to cut 4 of those. So you'll need to cut 2 mirrored out of your main fabric and 2 mirrored out of your lining fabric. Next, you'll need your sleeve pattern piece. It'll look something like this. I'm doing the gathered version, so I used the solid line. If you're not doing a gathered sleeve, you will cut on this dotted line here. There are the short lengths, the 3/4 lengths, and then the full length. So I'm doing a full length gathered sleeve for this tutorial, and we're going to cut it on the fold. And we're going to cut 2 out of our main fabric on the fold. Next piece you'll need is this little back band. This is where you will add the elastic into it. You also cut this on the fold. And finally, you will need your skirt piece. I'm doing the full circle skirt. There is also an option in this pattern to do the half circle skirt. But either way, you will need to cut out your skirt piece. Cut on the dotted lines if you are doing a top length, and the solid line if you are doing the dress length. And you will be cutting 2 of these out of your main fabric and cutting on the fold. So now I have all of my pattern pieces cut and I'm going to go cut my fabric. Okay, so now I've cut my fabric and I always make sure to keep the pattern pieces with the fabric that I have cut it so that I remember which piece is which. In simple patterns like this one, it's not a huge deal, but I'm going to do it out of habit and to teach you something that really helps me. So I have two circle skirt pieces. 1, 2. Looks like that. I made sure that the fold is on the right direction of my fabric on both pieces. So my fold is over here because that's going to be the center of my skirt. So I'm going to want the center to be right side up with my print, and the sides are going to be kind of sideways, but it's not really that noticeable when you do it in 2 pieces like I have. That's my skirt pieces. I changed from the dress version to the top version. I feel like the smaller pieces are easier to show you and it's more practical for my daughter. So we're gonna do the top version instead. It's still full circle skirt. Then we have our bodice pieces. So here we have the back bodice pieces. I have 2 main and 2 lining, so I have 4 of these pieces all together, and they're mirrored. So you can see these 2 pieces are mirror images and these 2 pieces are mirror images. That's my back bodice. Then I have my front bodice, which I have cut 2 on the fold. So I have my main, and then I have my lining as well, which I'm doing in the same fabric to make things easy. So I have those 2 pieces ready to go. Then I have 1 piece of the back bodice band. And then I have my 2 sleeves. Just like that. They are the exact same. So that is all the pieces that you will need to have cut today. So once you have all of your pattern pieces cut out of your fabric, you're done for today. And tomorrow we will start assembling our dress or top.